Hello everyone, I'm Umair and you're on Startup Stories once again. Today I have MedznMore with me, so let's dive right into their stories. Guys, why don't you welcome on the show and why don't you take a minute and introduce yourself first?
Thank you for having us, Umair. And I am Saad Khawar. I am a co-founder at MedznMore.
I'm Haseeb Ahmed, and I'm currently leading the growth and strategy for MedznMore.
So um, we started MedznMore in March of. So we started thinking about MedznMore in March.
So before we get into MedznMore, what's your background as a person, as a professional? What was your education? What was your kind of work experience and so on?
I graduated LUMS in 2015. Worked with
As a econ,
also majored in CS, computer
major in
science.
CS.
Yes.
Okay.
Worked at Zameen.com for a while, then started working at Dawai.pk, which was fairly small and new at the time. So was working with Furkan Kidwai, who was exceptionally smart. And worked there for 2 years, was heading product at Dawai when Asad Bhai, our co-founder and CEO, who was at the time the GM South, so he was heading Sindh and Balochistan for Kareem in Pakistan. He reached out to me. We started talking for a couple of months. Then in March 2020, Asad Bhai left Kareem, I left Dawai, and we started to give this serious thought, and we launched our beta. So we delivered our first order in September, 6 months after we quit our jobs to start this venture.
Okay, so you were a CS grad and worked at Zameen as a...
So I was working in business development at Zameen.
Okay, so you figured out very early that CS is not your thing, or at least you don't want to code for life.
No, but I mean, yes and no.
Okay.
So business development, I didn't really like, or I hated, if I'm being honest. So at the Vibe, product was something that I felt passionately about because it wasn't really coding, but it was problem solving at its core because it is at the intersection of business and technology.
Okay, so you consider yourself more as a product guy and
Essentially, yes.
Okay. Haseeb, about you?
So, prior to MedznMore, I was part of the initial team at Tkxel. I joined Tkxel.
And your background, I mean educational background?
Also, I graduated from LUMS,
Okay.
batch of 2015, so we were from the same batch.
Okay.
So I did my undergrad in political sciences and economics. And after that, I spent just under a year at Aon PLC, which is, Aon is basically a global leader in risk management. So financial services wasn't my thing. I figured that out. I then got an opportunity to co-lead the launch of Zameen's product sales vertical in South. So I took that challenge. We launched the product sales vertical, built the team from ground up. So that's when me and Saad got an opportunity to work together for the first time. So worked there for just under 3 years. And then after that, I co-founded my own real estate investment platform, which is currently still going on. It's self-sufficient. It's profitable venture. But then during COVID, I got an opportunity to work with Vahaj at Tkxel. So I worked there as an EIR. So like joined, I think 2 months before our pre-seed announcement, peak COVID times, and amazing time there. Spent just over a year at Tkxel, and then I quit my active role there and took up this exciting challenge at MedznMore as the head of strategy and growth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now tell us a bit more about what is MedznMore.
So essentially, Pakistan spends about north of $12 billion on healthcare.
Okay, every year, right? It's
Yes.
so when you say healthcare, it's medicine, it's doctor fee.
It is doctor consultations. It doesn't include counterfeit. So this is the recorded healthcare spend, out of which 54% is out of pocket.
So when you say recorded healthcare, I'm assuming most of the doctors who are running private practices, it's not a record.
That isn't recorded. Absolutely.
So that's hospital fees which gets recorded as well as the pharmaceutical.
Yes, that is
which gets
exactly it. So
okay. So the true market must be much bigger than that.
It is much larger. It is that is exactly it. So For example, a very conservative number is north of 20% for medicines that are counterfeit, but that isn't reflected in this number. So, which in itself adds $1 billion to the existing pharma market.
So when you say counterfeit, it's same generic, but packaged as a...
No. It is packaged exactly in the same way as a, let's say, Rizek 20 mg, but it will be a fake Rizek 20 mg being manufactured in factories in Fata, for example. So the problem is fourfold essentially. There is a problem of awareness because Pakistan is a branded generic market.
So before we get to that, what actually is a problem that you are solving, and then you can get into the details of the four.
So we are solving essentially the pharma supply chain in this country. Okay. So be it to a delivery to a consumer or solving for the retail pharmacy supply chain essentially. So you will get a bit more clarity when I go into a little more detail. So the problems are fourfold essentially. There is a problem of awareness, meaning that Pakistan is a branded generic market. So people go to pharmacies to buy brands. You buy Rizek, you buy Panadol. You don't buy, let's say, Omeprazole. And hence the pharmacy is, or the retail pharmacy.
Because doctors also don't write generics.
Yes. As compared to India, which is a 71% generic market, Pakistan is north of 99% branded generic market. So what tends to happen is person goes to the pharmacy to buy a brand. So the pharmacy owner, which is A, working capital constrained, B, space constrained, is forced to keep a large variety of the same generic, different brands of the same generic. So north of 25, 30 for each.
So how the pharmaceutical, and I'm just asking questions just to understand the model better. So how the pharmaceutical board works? Do they place medicine on their shelves on credit, or do they have to buy? And
The market works entirely on cash.
Okay.
So almost exclusively on cash.
So if I'm a pharmaceutical factory and you are let's say you are a pharmacy out there.
So I am a distributor. You are serving a pharmacy through a distributor if you are a pharmaceutical manufacturer.
So but distributor doesn't work on credit, they work on cash.
They work almost exclusively on cash. Okay. So the distributor has to, let's say, buy a month or 2 months worth of inventory from the pharma manufacturer, and since the distributor doesn't receive credit from the pharma manufacturer, he doesn't pass credit on to the retail pharmacies, essentially. So the problem is one of awareness. Let's say a person can potentially save up to 80% on his medicine bill by switching to a cheaper alternative of the same generic, but he doesn't know. In a market which is 100% out of pocket almost. So the problem is one of awareness. जिसके लिए we are essentially playing the role of a pharmacist अपने platform के through, and with our team of qualified pharmacists who man our call centers, लोगों को essentially educate कर रहे हैं. This is one. Okay. Two is availability. So since it is a branded generic market, and B, the distribution is broken, it is multi-layered, fragmented. So distributor हफ्ते में एक दिन आएगा. The frequency of distributor visits is either very low, or in some cases there is no visit at all. So since the distribution is so broken and the market is branded generic, on average a patient has to visit 2.2 pharmacies to get the entire prescription fulfilled. So he cannot get everything under one roof. 3 is authenticity. So there is a large amount of counterfeit in the market. So by very conservative estimates, every 1 in 5 medicines that you consume are counterfeit. Every 2.2 medicines out of every 5 that you consume are either counterfeit or have lost all efficacy. And that is a report by CNN, which quoted a reported number by the FIA and RAP itself. So
counterfeit can have 2 problems. It can be, being a duplicate of something is one. Being an incorrect medication or medication having no efficacy is another. So how rampant is that?
So having no efficacy is a larger problem than counterfeits. So if you consider medicines that are counterfeit or have lost all efficacy, it will be around 45% because there are no controls. Fridge अपने बंद कर देते हैं रात में pharmacy owners. So अंदर insulin पड़ी हुई खराब हो गई, ज़ाया हो गई. So बिल बचाने के लिए. Those are medicines that lose all efficacy, albeit थी वो असली लेकिन अब काम नहीं कर रही हैं अपना. Then there's 20% which is entirely counterfeit. Let's say a pharma company उसको पता है कि it has a let's say top line of 90 billion PKR. It doesn't. It has a top line of 110 billion PKR, 20 billion of which it never gets to see because फाटा में कहीं बन रही है वो essentially. So these are the four problems essentially that we are, and the fourth is the problem of access. So tier 2, tier 3 towns and cities don't have pharmacies at all. So वहाँ पे क्या चलता है, लाल शरबत या pharmacies अगर वहाँ पे हैं भी तो वहाँ कुछ मिल नहीं रहा. वहाँ पे जाके pharmacy वाले को he has to visit a district far away from his own to purchase stock, bring it to his own district and sell it his pharmacy. So he cannot keep a whole range of SKUs to sell there. So ये तो initial three problems that I cited were in areas जहाँ पे pharmacies हैं. The fourth one तो उन इलाकों के लिए जहाँ पे pharmacies सिरे से हैं ही नहीं. So the fourth problem is of access.
Or adding to this access wala bit, so a total population of 220 million people in Pakistan have only around 50,000 pharmacies to go to. So that is roughly around
50,000 is the total number of
total universe in Pakistan.
Okay.
So let's say one pharmacy gets to serve around 4,500 people.
And what is the total number of, or the top line of the medicine that we sell every year?
So the genuine medicine that is sold is north of 3.2 billion.
So these 50,000 pharmacies are doing a business of 3.2 billion dollars?
No, so this is just pharma. And so if you visit a pharmacy, उस पे आपको chips भी मिलेंगे, पानी की बोतल भी मिलेगी. You will also find other consumer products that are not, let's say, pharma.
So they are doing more.
They are doing
60-40 ratio, let's say. So $3.2 billion is about 60% of the total sale of a pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
So 40% additional is the non-pharma products.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, and we'll get into that, but I'm getting curious that you are a CS grad, you are an econ and political science grad, and you're telling me that there is a 20% and you were working in Zameen, and so how did you come to know about this particular problem? So I mean, what was the market?
I was heading product at Dawai. So what we figured out though at Dawai was that even though Pakistan is one of the fastest growing internet markets in Asia, the pharmacy purchase in Pakistan, which is being done online, is still less than 1%, and it will take a lot of time to get to the consumers through online channels. So if you want to solve the problem and solve it quick, you need to go where the consumers are, which is in brick and mortar pharmacies. So this is something that we are doing. Tabiyat.pk is our consumer brand, under which we are running our online pharmacy, and we will be adding a lot more healthcare services to it. In the interim though, even if we get the entirety of the Pakistani consumer that is shopping for pharmacy online, it is still less than 1%. So we had to go to retail pharmacies if we wanted to solve the, let's say, problem of counterfeit.
So as a strategy, who is your primary bigger market or primary customer? Is it B2B or B2C?
So our split is currently the majority of our business is B2B. A big majority of our business is B2B, and the B2C, albeit the traction has been phenomenal, but B2B blows it out of proportion when it comes to the volumes that we have been.
So essentially, you are an online distributor, or you're a distributor, a digital distributor.
So we have two verticals, like Saad said. So the consumer vertical is Tabiyat.pk, which caters to all the actual consumers that want to consume medicine. The B2B vertical is called Meds, which is primarily working as an online wholesaler for the pharmacies and medical stores. Of course, if you talk about numbers, currently out of let's say around 50% of the population in Pakistan is subscribed to the internet. But like Saad said, the online purchasing is still under 1%. So it's a big challenge to convert pharmaceutical or any purchase of any goods through online platforms. So we are working on it, but currently, of course, the split is tilting more towards the B2B side.
So B2B, I can understand.
Yeah.
And B2C space, especially in medication, how does the business model work? Because unless and until, just thinking loud over here, it's a chronic medication where you want to get medication like every 30 days, and it's a bundled medication. You cannot really make it profitable for very small amount of money.
It's both essentially. Currently, the bulk of our orders are essentially from chronic patients because the delivery times are higher because we deliver in 4 hours. If you bring it down to, let's say, 20 minutes, you will see a larger proportion of acute patients that are ordering from you, albeit their prescription sizes are lower, but that becomes a sticky household, which is likely to have older parents who are chronic patients who have chronic illnesses, hypertension or diabetes, that then increase your order values because they will be ordering for 30 days or 45 days worth of medication, essentially.
Eventually, this is your way of getting into the house.
Yes, essentially.
Okay. So this is the business model. Where are you with right now with your traction strategy, and we'll come to the team.
So we opened up our first warehouse in March of 2021. So we delivered our first order from our own warehouse in March 2021. And now we have 7 fulfillment centers across 3 cities, Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad. That is the reason we are here in Lahore, because Lahore is about to launch full scale. We were running a pilot through our fulfillment center. So 7 fulfillment centers in 3 cities in 1 year, and we have been able to see phenomenal growth. We were a team of 17 people, all in all. Including the delivery agents and frontline workers. We were a team of 17, 20 people because our tech was also outsourced to Venture Dive at the time, back in March 20. Now we are 617 people. So the scale has been phenomenal, and we have been very fortunate and lucky to have locked partnerships with some of our very key stakeholders, pharma companies, top 20. A lot of players among the top 20 are directly now partnered with us in some shape or form. So we are partnered with Tkxel, we are partnered with, it's a Colgate Palmolive, we are partnered with Farmivo, who are working with us in some shape or form. So the traction has been phenomenal, and B, we have been lucky and fortunate enough to have these key stakeholders back us in our endeavor to get counterfeits out of the market.
And along with this, we've been also fortunate enough to form strategic partnerships with players like doctors, and we'll be launching nationwide operations with D-Farm as well. Mm-hmm. So that will be going live very soon.
Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad, if you order from Daraz, any medicine that you order from Daraz, that will be us.
So we will be their exclusive partners.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So wonderful. So, and in terms of your GMV top line or whatever the number, whatever your North Star metric, you may not or may want to share it, but how it's growing, it's like 2x, 3x.
So we initially for the past year the growth rate would be much higher if I include the initial months, so I will discount those. For the latter half of the past year, we have been growing 35% month on month at a compound monthly growth rate, and now we are growing 100% quarter on quarter, and we foresee we will keep growing 100% quarter on quarter for at least a couple more quarters, and then we might start growing at 75 to 80%. And we are, if you want to just, let's say, get an idea, we are over 5% of Karachi's pharma market. at this stage. And
So how do you get to compute that you're 5% or X percent?
Pakistan is a $3.25 billion dollar worth, is a $3.25 billion pharma market. Added on top is $1 billion, around $1 billion in counterfeit. 18 to 20% is Karachi, the medicines that are consumed in Karachi. So it comes out to around 700 to 750 million is Karachi itself. So
I can do the math.
you can do the math essentially. So we are north of 5% of Karachi's pharma market, and we are a little over, actually, it depends on how you define little. We are over 1% of the Pakistani pharma market as it stands.
Who are your competitors in this space?
So our competitor is our primary competitor, and which is a good player, which I highly respect, is my former employer, the Y.PKS, and so it is primarily the only notable competitor that we have, and we now are potentially as large, if not larger, than the Y. If we
So there's a question on my mind, and I'll probably forget that. And this is probably a little tangent. And you guys are CS and econ and all that, and there are people in the pharmaceutical business. So I always wonder, why don't they go digital and do this stuff which you're doing today? I mean, is any of your competitor is a kind of a family-owned pharmaceutical from a background of family-owned pharmaceutical business, or they're all like you?
So they are essentially all like us. It is the mindset. It is the lot of people that we have been able to gather for this venture. So it takes a very different mindset. We have very little people from the industry, let's say, working with us. We do have in core capacities जहाँ पे चाहिए लोग, and लेकिन primarily the people that we have are from, let's say, Kareem or Daraz or, let's say, Unilever or P&G or Flana, bright, enterprising individuals who want to do something big and want to have an impact. So traditional pharma setup से समझे आप लोग नहीं है essentially.
And personally speaking, and on a lighter note, so my mother always wanted me to become a doctor, and like my siblings, I never did. So I think it's by virtue of fate that I've landed myself in healthcare without becoming a doctor. So I think, and same is the story for, like Saad said, for most of the people. So we've got some incredible talent from ventures like Kareem, some top leadership from Kareem is working, is part of the group, some top leadership from Daraz, some people who've been working in some big organizations abroad have joined the team, and no one really has that hands-on pharma experience or background.
So that and I'll let you speak. So normally they say that ideas are dime a dozen, and execution is what matters, and execution is always done by a team. So talk to me more about your team. Why you think you are the best team, and you're going to kill it as compared to anyone else?
So we have been able to gather an amazing bunch of people. So Haseeb, as you see here, he is heading our growth. Our head of commercial used to be the chief commercial officer for Daraz in Sri Lanka. Our GM North, Bilal Bhai, amazing guy, was formerly the country director of operations at Kareem. Our head of marketing was a very senior marketing guy at Kareem who launched the Start Something campaign and the global campaigns that Kareem did. So, and to your first point, why did we not get people from pharma? So we essentially got people who either were from tech or were interested in tech, because be it Kareem, Daraz, Food Panda, us, Bazaar, Retailer. So there isn't really much difference. There might be a difference of industry or how the market mechanics work, but by and large, the unit economics work in the same way. The supply-demand matching works in the same way. It is just that the demand side and the supply side starts to become different as you go across different industries, but essentially the principle and the economics and how they are supposed to work essentially stay the same. So we have been able to gather a brilliant bunch of people, and so our head of engineering was formerly working at a top five software services company in Pakistan. He was working on warehousing systems of Macy's and Gap, and so he's heading our engineering, and we are, I would say, more than fortunate to have the kind of people that we have on board.
So, as a co-founder, how did you manage to attract such a team? I'm assuming at the very beginning you may not have a lot of access to funds or money. You may not be. You're very young to even tell your prior success stories to them. So, how did you manage to get all these guys?
So shouldn't I be telling that?
Okay, you go ahead. How did he attract you?
After you,
You go first.
Okay, so I will after Haseeb, I'll tell you what we did prior to Haseeb. Okay. And you are exactly right.
So it's actually I'll keep it very simple and brief. If I compare the similar ventures in the industry, like I think the question is sort of in that kind of a direction. Why were people sold on meds, and why such brilliant people came together for the. So here the underlying purpose is very important to highlight. So like ventures like Retailo and other ventures, and including MedznMore, the common ground here is that we're all solving supply chains, we're all solving access to goods, empowering local SMEs and building operating systems for the local SMEs. So, but at Meds, yes, we are doing that, but that's not entirely our actual vision. That's part and parcel of the greater journey that we're on. So like Saad has also mentioned before, counterfeit and non-efficacious medicine are a danger to the vulnerable patients in our country, and people actually lose lives because of counterfeit medicine. So solving for counterfeit and providing access to healthcare and simplifying healthcare is the center of everything that everybody does at MedznMore. It goes beyond just building a robust infrastructure to disrupt a supply chain.
What Umair was talking about earlier, though, it was incredibly tough. Yes.
Yeah. So for me, that was something that I was already doing. So here, the purpose is far greater. You can actually directly link it to saving a life. The rest of the stuff will eventually happen. It has to happen. We can't really solve the bigger problem without solving the.
So what we did initially though was get a couple of dozen interns. We were paying them 10,000-12,000 rupees a month, and brilliant bunch of kids from IBA and from other great universities in Karachi who were in their fourth years, for example. So we had them do growth, we had them go to shops, we had them running ops, packing orders, delivering them even, wearing
यूनिवर्सिटीज के बच्चे थे
ये कुछ 3-4 यूनिवर्सिटीज के बच्चे थे, और इसको नस GI के कराची यूनिवर्सिटी फलाना ढिमकाना.
Do you see yourself alums guy would do that?
I think they are doing that in the ventures that are based out of Lahore.
I think starting off, everyone alums. I don't think alums guys would not. We both did it initially.
I think we
initially we did it.
I feel that these kids are much more fortunate that they are getting the kind of exposure that they are getting, because we had nothing to go to if we wanted to, let's say, work in our senior year.
So मुझे लगता है कि यार थोड़ा सा वो जरा भरम भी होता है यार लम से.
And especially right now, students like who are already doing their undergrads are coming on board as interns and working part time. So we, like he said, we didn't really have many opportunities.
Tech has become cool to, let's say, work in. So kids do want to join themselves.
And it also resonates with the personalities of youngsters, right? It's agile. You don't get that.
So we had 11 mattresses in our warehouse. I used to sleep there. The kids used to sleep there. The associates that we had full time used to sleep there, and we slept there for month upon month. So at least for 6 months, I used to, out of 180 nights, I slept, I think, 90 to 100 nights in the warehouse. And these interns or associates, these kids were there. They were enjoying, they were working, and they were having fun while doing it. So at the outset, in the
I
early
wanted
days,
to get to that, and I'm glad that you have done that. That a lot of time, and sometimes when people walk into this office as well, they see the end product. They do not see the sweat and tears
that is absolutely
behind
it.
that end product. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
So it
And,
looks very
that's
cool.
how it works.
It looks very cool on the face of it, but we were managing tens of millions worth of inventory कागज पे, सारा कच्चे पे हो रहा था काम, and while our tech was being built. So it is a nightmarish scenario. 10 दुकानें नई आ जाती थी, 20 दुकानें नई आ जाती थी, पूरा ऑपरेशन फट जाता था, क्योंकि वो सब
So if you're not if you're not वो कहते हैं ना फट रहे हो तो इसका मतलब you're not going fast enough.
that is absolutely it.
And during that time, we had to be very cognizant of getting the people with that roll up your sleeves mentality. वरना warehouse में कौन सोएगा?
Okay, talk to me about your funding journey.
So we initially raised a seed of $2.6 million from a bunch of local and international family offices, and we will very soon be announcing our next round of financing, inshallah, and it will hopefully, it will be inshallah the largest round by any healthcare startup in
So
Pakistan.
is it closer to 10 million or so?
It is somewhere around that mark potentially.
Are you raising it as a safe or equity round or what?
The details of it I will not be able to discuss, but it might be a so we are raising safes. We do continue to keep
And
raising safes.
in your fundraising journey, talk to us a little bit more about the current landscape, because if I drive myself like 3 years back, there were only some local angels, then some family houses started coming in, then now international investors are also coming in. So what's your experience with recent raising? Who are the investors? How they're perceiving Pakistan? What's happening?
Initially, most of the people currently who are running startups or who are part of startups have either, let's say, worked in Kareem or had worked in other places which weren't startups, let's say Bikey, which weren't.
So that's one thing that I tell everyone, that if you have worked at a company which has scaled, I mean, you have a good chance of, because people would like to hire you. And even I tell people over here that if you want to work at this company, the only advantage that you really can get if you can scale, because if otherwise that's the experience that is of you. So I guess
Absolutely. So people working currently in startups or who are running startups are either from Kareem or, let's say, other organizations, not startups that started out early in Pakistan. So let's say Dawai or Baikia, for example. The current landscape is very different. If these startups, let's say, had launched in 2017, they would have struggled. We would have struggled massively. So it isn't that, let's say, Dawai was.
I remember my first angel investment was like 6, 7 years back, and it was hard to raise any money at that point in time. And though I could still see those kids, they're very brilliant, but there was not enough money coming into them.
There was no money coming in. And अगर आप किसी उससे raise करते थे, so if you were to raise locally, सेठ बोलता था मैं $1,00,000 दूंगा और मैं KPMG बिठाऊंगा जो 4 महीने तुम्हारा audit करेगी. So it was a very different time to the times that we are sitting in, and we are in very fortunate times, alhamdulillah, because Pakistan is now at the verge of taking off. So in India, the ads you see, or Byju's, for example, is now sponsoring FIFA. So they are all tech companies, be it Zomato, Byju, Flipkart, or most other tech companies for that matter. They are flooding the airwaves.
Yeah, but as a kind of just a salt for reality, that for every success story that you see out there are 999 graves as well. So you have to be very hardworking, persistent, and moving aggressively if you want to really make it a success.
That is absolutely.
तो क्या है 1 साल 2 साल की vision क्या है, कहाँ पहुँच?
So ideally by 3 साल में, by 2025, we want to have at least 20% of the pharma market, Pakistan's pharma market. बी इट वो दुकान से बिक रही हो, वो कस्टमर के घर हम डायरेक्टली पहुंचा रहे हो, वो हमारे किसी ओमनी चैनल माइक्रो फुलफिलमेंट सेंटर से बिक रही हो जहां पे कस्टमर आगे खरीद सकते हैं या जहां से डिलीवर हो जाती है, बी इट जहां से भी डिलीवर हो रही हो हमें छू के निकल रही हो, सो हमारे थ्रू फार्मेसी के पास जा रही हो जहां से कस्टमर को जा रही हो, हमारे थ्रू डायरेक्टली कस्टमर को जा रही हो, हमारे फुलफिलमेंट सेंटर से कस्टमर आके ले रहा हो, कहीं से भी ले रहा हो, वो छू के हमें निकली हो. सो वी वांट टू ओन 20% मार्केट शेयर बाय 2025 एंड वी will have impacted in such a big way कि counterfeits हजारों जाने लेते हैं. So thousands of lives are lost each year in Pakistan due to the epidemic of counterfeits that we have. We want to not only, of course, we are in business, so we want to build a large, profitable, valuable business, but we want to have some impact doing that, and we want to save the lives of people whilst we get there. And we would want young people, enterprising individuals who are looking to get into technology startups or technology ventures to come join us on our journey and simplify healthcare and solve healthcare for 200 million Pakistanis in this country with us.
So thank you very much for being with me.
Thank you.
I think
It was an absolute pleasure.
It was a wonderful discussion, and all the power to you. May you be very successful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
It was a pleasure being here, and thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.